Hello, I'm Christopher Winfiniger. I'm a diversity and inclusion educator and specialist with the Vice Chancellor's Office for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at UC Davis. COVID-19 has changed every aspect of our lives, and even each of us have had to shift the ways we balance work and life in an effort to adapt. As we continue to transform how and where we work, we also continue to navigate and comprehend the full ramifications of the global pandemic. COVID-19 continues to reveal and magnify many systemic inequities and disparities across race, gender, class, and more. Today, we'll introduce the concept of microaggressions and offer some insight into how they show up in our daily interactions with one another. The term microaggressions was coined by African-American psychiatrist and Harvard University professor Chester Middlebrook Pierce in his work with Black and African Americans. Dr. Pierce defined microaggressions as subtle, stunning, often automatic and nonverbal exchanges which are put-downs. Dr. Daryl Wing Su, professor of counseling psychology at Columbia University, would later go on to define microaggressions as brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative slights and insults about one's identity. To help us illustrate the concept of microaggressions, let's hear from some community members who will share a brief snippet of their experiences with microaggressions. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Could you share some experiences you had in your encounters with microaggressions?
Sure. So I'm going to share a situation that actually I've never really talked about publicly. When I first started in the role, within the first couple of weeks, my colleague said to me, "Congratulations on your new role." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Now we're slowly passing each other, so we're still within ear's length of hearing each other. And she goes, "Congratulations." And then as we're starting to kind of pass each other, she goes, "And now you make more than me." And then says, "But well deserved." Like that. So at this point, now there's a little bit of distance between us. I literally stopped in my tracks. At that time, there was lots of people around, so it wasn't super obvious, but I just kind of thought, first, that felt like a gut punch. And, oftentimes with microaggressions, that's one of the first indications is when it doesn't feel right. Oftentimes it isn't right. But when I started to think about the comment more, that now you make more than me, but then the comeback of, "Oh, but well deserved," I thought to myself, wow, this is someone who I consider to be a friend. And to be quite honest, I think they are someone who respects me and genuinely likes me. And also, I just wondered what gave them the audacity to say that to me? Because what I'm certain of is that kind of statement was not made to anybody else on our leadership team. I'm certain that it was not. So it stung, it said a lot. I let it go. I didn't hold any harsh feelings, but it let me know that there's a lot happening in the minds of folks that tends to come out every now and again that we really should be paying attention to.
Yeah, that really illustrates sort of this element about microaggressions that I think is really difficult to sort of grasp sometimes. It's really about the hidden messages, right? So what's operating underneath the surface there? What are we not hearing? And that's a great illustration of that.
For me, I would say that my experiences have likely not been the worst in terms of the range of things that could occur, but overall, because my name is not a common name, often when I tell folks my name, they say, "Oh, where's that from?" or "Where are you from?" And when I say I'm from San Francisco, California, they say, "No, where are you really from?" So I get that kind of a question quite a bit.
In the context of COVID-19 and the pandemic, there's been an increase in anti-Asian violence. Could you tell us how you've seen perhaps microaggressions show up in the Asian American and Pacific Islander community?
The staff member came to me and said, "I want to talk to you about something that's been happening, and it's frustrating me, but I don't necessarily know what to do." And the situation is that oftentimes she would be mistaken for her other Asian Pacific Islander colleague. And it happened over and over and over again. And the thing is that it would happen by people who were in a higher level position than she. It would happen by white women in particular. And also, when it happened, it was seen as, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to get it right, without really pausing to think, why does this keep happening over and over and over again? And of course, for the person with whom they're making the mistake, they're just kind of like, oh, my bad. But for the folks that are a part of the marginalized community, this might be incident 3, 4, 5, within a week, within a month, within a year. And after a while, it gets to be absolutely exhausting. And I remember the conversation, the staff member was telling me that this is happening and it's problematic, but within that conversation, questions around visibility, do they really see me? Do they actually see me? And if they see me, why did they get my name wrong all the time? And if they see me, are they seeing like the work that I'm producing? Am I really being effective here? It started to ask all these other questions that really lend itself to, what am I doing here? Like, what really is the impact that I'm making? And I have to tell you, it broke my heart because this individual is highly competent, highly intelligent, very valuable, makes incredible contributions, has moved their program forward in very dynamic ways. But all of that was called into question because of the perception and experience of just not really being seen for who she is. And that starting with her name and not getting her mixed up with somebody else.
I feel a lot for my Asian colleagues and friends and community. I'd say both, locally here and abroad, because there is such scrutiny and difficulty in terms of labeling and hostility and assumptions about COVID, and folks that appear Asian, like especially from countries like China or Japan or Korea, or those that look like they could be Chinese, folks to make a lot of assumptions that they're to blame for COVID. And you hear really difficult terms like China virus or Wuhan virus. And I guess I would say that I have a lot of empathy and support because, there are similar examples in communities such as a broader Asian community, such as Sikh Americans and Muslims, where when something is happening in the world, those communities especially get targeted and get pointed to and get mistreated, and often are the recipients of microaggressions and microbiases. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
What would you like others to know about your experience?
I feel that during this pandemic, being an Aggie Public Health Ambassador, as well as doing American Red Cross work, I feel that I want people to know that public health is really important in being not only an advocate for yourself, but an advocate for those who cannot. I feel people should, not only like people towards me, but towards everybody. I feel like people should have empathy and realize that people like me or like anybody else who's trying to create herd immunity or create a positive environment for those, that we're just trying to do our best, and everyone's trying to do their best, and that there's no need to get super riled up, as everyone has already been riled up throughout this pandemic.
I guess I would say that sometimes we tend to make assumptions about people and not knowing their full story. And that can be for someone who looks like us and someone who doesn't look like us. And we do have tendencies to make assumptions. And so I would just offer the idea of having an open mind and getting to know people on a personal level. I think that really opens up our minds to learn about each other a little bit more. And so as much as we can try to get to know each other a little bit more, get to know the differences and probably more similarities than we would realize, will certainly serve us better.
Showing love in the workplace now, a genuine sense of care, and an ability to demonstrate that we may not always get it right, but that we're here, we're doing this work together, we're colleagues, and we're going to support each other down the road. I think there's a lot of ways in which we can do that we sometimes don't. We get frustrated, we want things done quickly, we want them done right, especially for people or with people whom we don't have that close connection and relationship with. And I just think that we need to have a blanket philosophy where we grant each other grace. I think coming back to the workplace, I think navigating still the unpredictability of this pandemic, us being back in close quarters physically, and just the need for us to have some assurance that we can get through this, but we also need each other and we have each other. And that is the most important thing, not all this other stuff. The other stuff, yeah, okay, we'll get to it. But the people, the students, the staff, the individuals, the humanity, that's the prize. And I think we can't lose sight of that. So let's remember to always grant each other grace.
It's this really strange phenomenon where you see, microaggressions and biases on an individual level, but those same issues kind of extend to everyone else, and it's really a structural situation. And you can take these small microaggression and bias issues and kind of expand them, right? So if you're focused on hating someone because of their certain ethnic background, you're not focused on like solving the problem. It's kind of like a vicious cycle. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
What do you think is important for people to know more about or to learn when it comes to microaggressions and how they might show up for each other as we continue to try to support each other in the pandemic?
I feel that people know what aggressive behavior is, and it may seem like they're just being aggressive because they have their First Amendment or they are entitled to believe what they want. But microaggressions are more specific to those who are people of color, and it comes with implicit bias. And even when I became an Aggie Public Health Ambassador, the first lesson I learned was about implicit bias. And that has only increased with, we got now what to do in situations of anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander hate. I feel that people should try to educate themselves more.
How would you like folks to show up for you within sort of the context of microaggressions? How would you like allies to show up for you within as it relates to microaggressions?
And I think it's actually a two-way street, right? Because I know there's times where I said something that I meant as a positive, but it came out negatively. And it takes me to be open to say, hey, did that hurt you? I'm sorry if it did. And it takes the other person to be like, you hurt me, but I appreciate you trying to not hurt other people in the future.
I think for me too, the other place that we really have got to get a better handle on is really being able to own, name, and minimize the fear that exists. And I have to tell you, Brene Brown talks about this idea around emotional exposure. And she talks about that in reference to vulnerability. But I see vulnerability and fear, I see the two really related. I think that we can do a better job of making fear a natural part of how we operate that just simply exists, but we get to figure out how to work with it instead of acting like it just doesn't exist, because it's when we act like it doesn't exist, that's when it really gets a hold of us. And that's when we start to do these things that are not necessarily in integrity with the values that we truly hold. So for me, one of the things I would like us to consider, how do we have more real and honest conversations about fear and vulnerability? I know I've been referencing Brene Brown's work, but we've been reading Dare to Lead as a department. And she talks about how oftentimes courage and fear coexist simultaneously. And that oftentimes when we find ourselves in these really difficult situations, in a moment's notice, we have to decide, are we going to take the route of fear or are we going to take the route of courage? And I think if we are thoughtful, I think we can do a little bit of both. I think we can own this feels really uncomfortable. For example, doing this interview, and I'm trying to be really thoughtful about what I'm saying, but I'm also going to own the courage to step up and really take advantage of this opportunity. And being able to just be okay about that and being able to talk about it, it's fine. But we as an institution, and I think as leaders in particular, could do a much better job of that. And I think if we start to kind of own that a little bit more, I think that microaggressions become easier to identify because they don't hijack us emotionally. And I think that could be really helpful for us.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences.
Thank you, Chris. I've enjoyed our time.
We would like to thank our community members for sharing some of their experiences with us, and we hope you found value in this brief exploration of microaggressions. To learn more about microaggressions and other topics offered through our diversity and inclusion education program, please visit diversity.ucdavis.edu. There, you'll find additional resources are available for University of California affiliates in the Education tab. You can also enroll in our diversity courses through the UC Learning Center. If you're interested in scheduling one of our diversity courses for your department or unit, contact us at diversitytraining@ucdavis.edu and make sure to connect with us on social media. Thank you for joining us.